Welcome to Coffee with a Cop.
Today we interviewed 6 police officers.
And they all answered the community's questions.
Their answers were humbling and passionate.
Personally, I found it interesting that in their job they went through training to avoid offending anyone.
My favorite part was that even though times are tough right now, they were laughing and joking around with us.
Yeah.
And I just loved how passionate they were about helping our community, and that was their sole reason for becoming a police officer.
And I loved how they could just burst out laughing at any moment.
Yeah, we had a ton of fun.
And you don't want to miss out on that either.
Welcome, Deputy Chief Webb.
Thanks for having me.
What is the pay range for a police officer here in Pinehurst, and how does that compare to other towns?
The pay range starts off around 36, 37,000, goes up to about 48 for an entry-level police officer.
Do any of the officers work a second job?
Yes, as far as I know, most of them do, including myself.
Okay.
Prior to me getting into law enforcement, I was a paramedic here in Moore County.
Oh, okay.
I stopped doing that in 2017. However, I continue to work for them part-time, just for a little extra income and a little something to do on my days off. I know a lot of our guys work just kind of odd jobs, work at hardware stores, mow lawns, just to do something on their days off and a little extra income.
A lot of the officers work secondary jobs. They do anything from landscaping to working private security, or if they do woodworking, they do that. So a lot of officers do have secondary jobs to fulfill their obligations and to make a little extra money on the side.
Yeah. I know a lot of, at least 4 of the people at the PD that I know of teach classes at Sandhills, like for the BLET program. So I had met like some of them through the school before I even came to work. And then some other ones have other side jobs too.
Is it a challenge to find or hire enough qualified officers?
It is becoming a challenge. I teach the Basic Law Enforcement Academy as one of the adjunct instructors with it, and I've noticed over the last 8 or 9 years our numbers of students have dropped. Not sure if because of everything going on in society today. The pay range is not obviously at the top of the scale compared to some of the other jobs that they could take. And so some of those may be factors that are deterring folks from getting into it. Most people that get into it, it's because they truly want to help.
Yeah.
And most have a passion for it.
It seems that there's less and less people wanting to get into law enforcement now. When I first got into it in 2017, I was up against quite a few people who wanted to get into it, whether it was work in Pinehurst or work for the sheriff's office. I had to go against quite a few people, but now it seems that a lot of agencies, including ourselves, are struggling to find qualified applicants to come and work.
If your department were to receive the funding to improve one thing, what would you first and foremost want to improve?
You know, I think the biggest thing that we can look forward to doing, if we had the funding to do, would be to start a police athletic league here. You know, we're becoming a younger community, and it would be nice to have the resources in-house to maybe team up with the fire department and some volunteers to start something that would give our kids just more interaction earlier on with law enforcement. You know, maybe a Pop Warner League or something small like that, where we could kind of pour into the lives of our young folks a little sooner.
Yeah.
But those are all wish list things, you know.
Yeah. I imagine there'd be a lot of things that you'd want.
Quite a few.
If anything, I'd say specific to Pinehurst, it would be kind of a community outreach, community policing. Since we're such a small little town, I feel like everybody is very close to each other. And I would like to see the police department become very close with the citizens, since we are such a smaller town.
Probably our fleet a little. Cars are always an issue with police officers because they run for almost 24 hours a day sometimes, and so the wear and tear on those is pretty high, and we just ordered 3 new ones. So I think everyone would like if we had some extra money to go ahead and round that out and finish up improving our fleet.
I think we'd like to improve our manpower. I don't think any agency feels like they have enough people to effectively police their towns or counties or whatever type of jurisdiction they're in. And it mostly boils down to we want to give the best service we can, and the best way to do that is providing more officers trained out there.
Yeah.
And I think training would be another way to spend the funding too once you hire the officers.
What is the hardest part of your job?
Going to a door at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and telling a loved one that their family member has passed away.
I think some of the hardest parts is seeing some of the victims. That's what I've come to find. You know, you especially see the small children or the elderly when they're victimized. That stays with you. But from a personal note, being away from home on holidays, missing birthdays, missing school events, that's also a difficult part of the job. The job itself, I love it. I can't think of doing anything else in this world besides being a police officer. There's just, with every other job, there's times that you struggle with what you see and what you endure. And some of the times missing family, some of it's the victims that you have to help.
And what's the hardest part of your job?
Do you like the heavy stuff? Knowing that every call you go to, every house you go to, like there's a possibility that somebody in there wants to hurt you. Like, so every interaction you have with somebody, you want to do, like, you want to be nice and you want to do the best job you possibly can, but at the same time in the back of your head you're going through scenarios like, oh, if they reach back here and they don't listen to me, like what am I going to do after that? Or if they pull something out of there, or if they pull a gun out of here or a knife out of here, like what's going to be my next step? And then also, like for me, going to like an elderly person's house and just realizing like their family doesn't care about them, and then you want to do more for them and then you can't.
As a chief, I think the hardest part of my job is sending officers into harm's way instead of going myself. You know, I spent the first 11 years of my life as a member of a tactical team where I was a point man, so I was the first guy through the door. And I could address those things and handle those situations. And the hardest thing to do is to send the folks you care about into harm's way and sit back and have to coach those things. So I guess that's probably the most difficult thing for me.
Wow.
How do your weapons compare to those you're going up against?
We do well there. The city council's been very good with us with funding to make sure that we have the proper defensive weapons and training that we need for that. We've been fortunate to not be in those situations, but our officers are prepared and outfitted should there be a crisis.
We are very well armed and equipped here in the village as officers. I have prided myself and our command staff on trying to make sure that we're staying ahead of the curve. You know, we give our folks the very best safety equipment so that they do have a nice ballistic vest that protects them. We have plates for our officers. You know, we have patrol rifles. These are things that we've kind of built in over a strategic planning process over the years so we didn't put an undue burden on our taxpayers. But we have an excellent weapon system. Our pistols are top notch. We just migrated to a new pistol weapon system following the FBI's research and some of our own research here. So I think we've been blessed to have a administration and a council that has supported us to take care of our folks so that we get what we need. We don't always get what we want because nobody can give you everything you want, but we get what we need to make sure our citizens are safe, and that's been a blessing.
So tell us about your life outside of the department. Do you have a family, any hobbies?
I do. I'm married. I don't have any children. I've got a dog. We like to travel. We come up with a list of places we want to see for the next 5 years, and we're trying to hit those cities or those locations, you know, if the time's right. That's what I like to play golf. I like to spend time with my wife, you know, just sort of enjoying the time off and going for walks. I enjoy painting, so just various different things.
That's cool. You're in a great place if you love to play golf.
Yeah, couldn't ask for a better place.
And what's the place that you would most want to visit that you're saving up to go to?
I think we'd like to go to Italy. That's one of our bucket lists.
Yeah,
that may be after retirement, but that's one of the places we'd like to go.
That's awesome. That's where my parents went for their anniversary. So
Oh,
for their honeymoon, actually.
Life outside of the department. Mostly, I am Papa outside of the department. I get to be granddad to 3 beautiful grandchildren, and I spend a lot of time laughing and giggling and being a kid with them. And I spend a lot of time in my church. I like to teach and play music and things like that. I was a music major before I was a criminal justice major, so I can play just about every instrument. I'm not really great on woodwinds. You don't want to hear that, but I kind of do a lot of that in church.
I don't have a family of my own. I have my family's Puerto Rican, so we're like a big family. So I live near my grandma and my aunts and stuff like that. So I go, pre-COVID, I used to visit my grandma a lot. I try to still, and I'll get groceries for her and stuff like that, and go hang out. I play the guitar, and I've been trying to teach myself how to play the piano for a while, but it's been on hold because of the COVID stuff, so I haven't been going to my grandma's house. I have my piano there because my uncle lives with them, and he's a musician too, so I have most of my instruments there. But like I said, we couldn't hang out much. I like watching movies. I'm a nerd, so I watch anime and play video games. So I do that, and then I love animals, so I play with my dog and hang out with my cat sometimes.
That's nice.
My wife, we jokingly call ourselves Law and Order when we run 5Ks together because she's a prosecutor with the federal government right now. And my hobbies, I love using my smoker. So I do briskets and pork shoulders and chicken, and I could go on forever about the meats and things that I smoke. But I really enjoy doing that. My next adventure is to cold smoke cheese. So I'll let y'all know how that goes. But I also have to buy a vacuum sealer. So I got to get that approved with my wife because she runs the budget.
But I like to sing. Yeah, I sing along with the radio.
That is me too.
It's terrible, and I sing terrible. But yeah, that's what I like to do. I like to crank up the music, and I have to, in Pinehurst, I have to turn it down because I might be right on top of a house somewhere, And what's the chief doing? He's singing to Britney Spears.
I do. Married, wife named Dee. We live here in Pinehurst, so I've bought into the community. I've been here now for about 12 years. Absolutely love Pinehurst. We have 3 children. The last one just moved to Connecticut, so we have an empty house completely now. She's married to a gentleman, just got out of the military. And a son that's 27 in the Coast Guard. Daughter that lives down below Lumberton area. And so family-wise, that I've been blessed. And we've got 2 miniature schnauzers that are my fur babies. One spoiled absolutely rotten. Hobbies wise, I've got a boat. I love the lake and I love the beach, and so pretty much every weekend that I'm off, luckily I'm an 8 to 5 guy Monday through Friday for the most part, so every weekend I have off, so we're in the water somewhere. So that's kind of my thing. If I'm in the water, it's playing or fishing, one of the two. So that's my stress relief from the week. So I've been in long enough now, I'm kind of to that point. I wouldn't want to do anything else. I absolutely love it. I woke up one morning basically with an epiphany and said, hey, look, I'm getting out of paramedic and I'm going to law enforcement. And that was about the extent of it. I'd been helping people in the medical aspect, and I said, you know what, I want to try to prevent some of this from happening now. So if I can get a drunk driver off the road instead of me going to a crash where a drunk driver's hitting, injured or killed somebody, now if I can get one off the road, I may save a life.
Yeah.
So that was one of my reasons for getting into it to start with.
How's your experience as a police officer different from what you thought it would be before you became one?
I think it's everybody watches TV and sees the running and gunning and things like that. It's a lot more paperwork than what people perceive. For every minute of action, there's 2 hours of paperwork that goes with it. For example, one DWI arrest can tie an officer up for 5 or 6 hours, and they're off the road for that amount of time. It may take them an hour to arrest the drunk driver, get him processed into the jail. Then you've got 4 or 5 hours more of paperwork, not to mention the court, on your days off. So it's a lot more time consuming than everybody thinks it is.
So I had no idea what cops did, honestly. When I went to college, I was just I'll study criminal justice and do something with that. And then I did my internship with a sheriff's office in Harnett County. and I just thought cops, I don't know, drove around giving tickets and stuff. Like I had no idea. I literally, there's so much more to the job that I never knew. And it was so different because, I mean, we do so much. Like, we're like psychologists, we're like, I guess doctors, not doctors, but like in emergency situations, you know, sometimes cops like patch people up, do CPR, stuff like that. So you do various things. You have to talk people down from like hurting themselves. Just you have to shift your personality to like fit every situation.
What is a misconception you think that the public has about the police?
I think that a lot of people think we're more serious than we are. I mean, we are serious when it's time to do our jobs, but mostly everyone in the departments I've worked at anyway has been very lighthearted. A lot of clowns, you know, a lot of people that think they're funny. Like, you know, when I came in, I thought I was funny and none of y'all laughed, but that kind of stuff is a very lighthearted group. It's not the angry, very intense people that we're portrayed as most of the time.
I believe they think we're out there trying to, from what, the movements that we see right now, that we want to get into violent encounters with them. No police officer comes to work wanting to get in a fight, wanting to have to tussle with somebody, wanting to run and chase a car. I mean, we just want to help people. Every time you see where people get upset about an officer-involved shooting, or a lot of the opinions tend to go towards the officer wanted to do that. The stress involved, the stress on their family, the hardships that the officer suffers after having to do something like that is not what anybody wants to go through. The emotional toll is great for officers that are involved in high-speed chases, that are involved in shootings, that are involved in uses of force where it was unnecessary. I mean, not the use of force was unnecessary, but the perception that they wanted to use force was necessary, because it takes emotional tolls. I mean, there's officers that don't recover from that, and they lose their family, they lose their livelihood, they lose everything because of that one event. So nobody wants to go out there and get involved in something like that. They want to prevent it at all costs. And to the point, I've seen a trend over the past 5 years or so where officers have gotten hurt by holding back when force needed to be used. They were so concerned about the traumatic events that it would have on their family and themselves that they held back, and they ended up losing their life or getting seriously hurt for not acting when they needed to because of the opinions going on. And they struggle, and their families struggle with losing them because of the public's opinion that they wanted to go out there and do that. And in truth, no officer wants to be involved in a shooting. No officer wants to chase somebody until they wreck their car. It's no person wants to hurt another person. So that's a misconception, I think, is that we want to get involved in things like that when we're trained to deal with it, but we don't want to actually have to.
Wow, that's really humbling to hear what you guys go through just to do your job.
Yeah, I mean, law enforcement's a 30-year career.
Yeah.
And that's a long time to actually deal with those stressors. It's stressing on your body. Wearing all this equipment, it probably weighs another 40, 45 pounds. I'm over 50 years old and been doing this for 22 years now, not counting other places I've worked. And the things you see and the encounters you have stay with you. It becomes part of who you are, and it's not something that I think that the people see, that the toll of the job on a personal, physical, and emotional has on the officers. I don't think they realize. And that's why you see officers leaving with 15, 20 years in, so close to retirement, because they can't emotionally deal with that anymore.
Thank you just for volunteering to do that, even to be in the police, even though you know that you could come across those situations. That's
Thank
big.
you. Like I said, I couldn't think of anything else I'd want to do, and not sure I'm qualified to do anything else at this point.
That we're superhuman. We are not big, strong, burly machines. The police are just citizens that have a job as being police officers of protecting you. We're just like everybody else. We cry, our heart hurts, we laugh, we play practical jokes. You know, we care, we're compassionate. You know, and I think sometimes we're seen as just these robotics to kind of fill a need, but we're totally not any of that. You know, we're just normal people.
They think everybody's just like jerks, and like I thought, all they did was like give tickets and stuff cars like that. So I think they don't see cops as people. You know what I mean? So they just see them as. I feel like people fit one personality into all cops.
Yeah.
So they just group them all together as one thing, and aren't open to believing, or, you know, like getting to know them, and they don't really see like the big picture and see them as individuals. So I think it's a big misconception. Like, you need to start seeing them as us as individuals instead of just like one cop and then they're all the same.
Would you like to comment at all on the movement to defund the police?
Sure. I think that comes down to a lot of not understanding how police are funded. You know, I've heard a lot of people talk about and seen it on social media, defund the police. But if you understand government budgets, and most people don't, and if it weren't for my experience in government, I wouldn't either. But so we hear a lot about police training too, right? Well, when you look at our budget, 80 to 85% of our budget is all payroll. So when you talk about defunding the police, you are talking about getting rid of police officers, because 85% of the budget is payroll. That's before we pay the light bill. A lot of people don't realize we have to pay our own electricity. That's before we put gas in our cars. That's before we buy cars. That's before we have training. So our training budgets actually end up being pretty small in comparison to the whole budget. So we can't simultaneously get more training and defund the police. And I also don't think you have to defund the police to fund other things. A lot of the suggestions that are coming out in police reform aren't bad suggestions, but you don't have to defund law enforcement to pay for those things. You can find that money elsewhere, and a lot of that will be on the elected officials on the state and federal level to find those funds.
People can Monday morning quarterback anything. Officers have to react in a split second in so many situations. And in that split second, it's a life or death situation.
What would you encourage citizens to do to show their support of the police force?
You're hearing now about the silent majority. I would encourage people to speak out when they have a positive encounter with law enforcement. We had the other day, an officer saw a child fall off a bicycle, and he stopped, bandaged the child up, and left before the parents could thank him. We found out about it through social media.
Just say thank you. Just those two words, man, mean so much, especially in a time like today.
I don't think a lot of people realize just how far just saying thank you goes. You know, you see a police officer, you see them in their uniform walking around. What you don't realize is they might have just been getting yelled at by somebody, or they may have just dealt with a traumatic call that they were on, or been to a bad wreck scene. And so when people come up and just say thank you, it just goes so far, and it really makes your day when people do that.
What's the difference between a police officer and a sheriff?
So we are both sworn law enforcement officers in the state of North Carolina. The sheriff's department is required or responsible for handling the civil processes in the county. So anything that's not criminal related, the civil side of it. They handle the civil, they handle the jail, they handle the courthouses. And so they have the same arrest powers we do. Kind of a few more because they handle the domestic violence protection orders and things of that nature. But all in all, we're the same. It's different uniform color, with the exception of they issue gun permits. They take guns away from domestic violence offenders. Of course, they man the jail and keep up with that, which, man, I'm glad they do it, because I wouldn't want to deal with the jails. That's a lot going on in a small area. That's why I do municipal law enforcement versus sheriff's department.
Does Pinehurst have a jail?
No. No. We do have an old jail though. Huh? So, Pinehurst doesn't actually have a jail. We don't have any type of detention facility of any type here, to include holding cells and so forth. There's so many restrictions that you have to have if you're going to have holding cells or jails. That's why we like to leave it to the sheriff's department so that they handle that aspect of it. The old fire department downtown on Community Road, believe it or not, in the basement of it is an old jail cell. And that's where the old jail used to be for the village of Pinehurst years back. So, but no, we don't currently have a jail.
If you're out on an open road and no one else is around, do you ever just turn on your sirens and go 100+ miles per hour?
Never.
Okay.
Everything that we do, our cars are recorded. We have car cameras that record.
Okay.
So we got to be on our toes and make sure that we don't give ourselves a bad image.
Okay.
If you're out on the road and no one else is around, do you just turn on your siren and go 100 miles per hour?
No.
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 Would you want to do it?
That would be fun, yes, but no. That's dangerous.
No. Speed kills. I'm the lead driving instructor for the community college for the basic law enforcement driving program. And having been a medic before, and especially where I'm at now, I see the results of speed. And unfortunately, it can double, and once you reach certain speeds, it becomes quadruple, then it becomes 16 times over, and it compounds on itself.
Now to a more serious question. There's been a lot of talk in the media about police departments and racism. What are your thoughts on that?
And I've stopped cars at night. I can't tell if it's a male or a female, much less the race of the person that's being stopped. I think there's enough checks and balances in place through our legal system, through leadership, that it would be rooted out pretty quickly. There's always a potential for that in any environment, whether it be law enforcement, whether it be banking, whether it be anything. People have prejudices that they either have developed or have been taught. But in law enforcement in general, I don't think it's as prevalent as people seem to perceive it is. I've never experienced it. I see everybody as an individual. For the last 10 or more years, we've had minority sensitivity training. So we understand different cultures. We understand that what could be considered offensive. We don't tolerate any type of racism or singling people out, to the point that if we stop a car, we document who we stop, the race, the age, so we don't discriminate against age, race, nationality, or anything. That there's data collected on that through traffic stops, so it doesn't even show that we can profile certain stops. There's preventative steps throughout the process, and that goes back to our hiring process too. We try to weed that out in our backgrounds and our psychological examinations. Again, hiring the right person for the right job means everything. So I haven't experienced it, and I don't think officers in Pinehurst would say they've experienced it, or in this county that I'm aware of.
Racism has no business in the business of law enforcement, period. We have to be above reproach, and we have to protect and serve our community, period. Everybody is created by, in my belief, this is not the Village of Pinehurst's belief, I'm recommending, this is Earl Phipps, the chief at home, Papa, telling you, we are all created equal by God. He made us all perfect and different in His image. So I think it's important for us in law enforcement to love those differences and embrace them and use them collectively to make our community better. We try to mirror our community here. I think when you see an instance of racism in any profession, it needs to be dealt with swiftly, and it needs to be plucked out, especially in our job where we're called to protect and serve and defend folks' liberty 24/7. You know, we have a set of values here that we live by. We put them on our police cars, you know, and we put them on our uniforms, on our patches. We're community oriented. That means the community, one community, all community created under God. Different, beautifully different, but the same, because we are created in His image. So
That's beautiful. Absolutely. There's been a lot of talk in the media about police departments and racism. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's a very tough thing, and that's something that, you know, we're having to deal with right now. And, you know, sadly, there are incidents of racism within police departments, within any industry. And we do what we can to make sure that we're not employing people like that, and that if we identify it, that we get rid of it. You know, we take an oath, and one thing I talk to our officers about a lot is, one, living up to the core values of our town, which are service, initiative, teamwork, and improvement. And if we can do one thing for each of those four things every day, we're going to be great cops. But two is to honor our oath. And we take an oath to serve and protect our public, to defend the Constitution of the United States and the state of North Carolina, and enforce the laws of the state of North Carolina. Doing that in a biased way is nowhere in there. And so we need our officers living up to our oaths, and that's the culture that we push at the Pinehurst Police Department, is living up to our oath, living up to our core values, and doing those things every day.
What motivates you to be a police officer when there's so much negative media?
First and foremost, I want to be the change with the negative media. I want to show the media that there are good law enforcement officers out there, that we can do our job, that we can have fun, that we can make a difference. Aside from going out there and making a difference, it's a lot of fun. Getting to see all the different walks of life, getting to help people through their struggles, seeing people on their worst days and trying to make it a little bit better for them. That's what kind of motivates me to keep going.
That's great.
You know, I didn't get into law enforcement because it was going to be a fun ride and the media was always going to love us. You know, we get into this job to make sure that we're protecting the public, that we're putting ourselves out there for people that we don't even know, because our interest is creating a safe community for everybody.
I love the chance to be able to teach younger officers, new officers coming into the profession, the right way to do the job. I love it when a kid, like you've interviewed some of our younger officers and some of our more mature officers, they all get it. And it's a great time to be able to stand up and teach your folks the right way the first time. Let them become mini chiefs out in the community. I love watching them go from being afraid to make decisions to becoming decision makers that are impacting the community in a positive, above and beyond what we do in law enforcement. They kind of start to say, well, what does it mean if we're going to serve, you know, take initiative? You know, what does service and initiative mean? You know, what does improvement mean? You know, and they kind of start working into those values and living into them and going above and beyond. I love seeing that. So it's fun to be a part of that and to kind of create that atmosphere so our officers can thrive and do those kind of things.
Yeah, that's a wonderful answer.
The Ward County Sheriff's Department has come up publicly saying that they won't enforce the governor's mandate. Has the police department done anything similar?
No, we've not sent out anything publicly on it. However, the mask mandate itself, we don't enforce the citizens aspect of it. Where we would enforce would be more on the establishment. If by chance we had issues with them not doing it, we went out a couple of times. They're still not abiding by the rules of the patrons and employees having to wear masks. Then we could technically issue a citation because they violated the governor's order. That's not our intent. Where it would really fall into play is if you went to a restaurant and you didn't have your mask on, and they said, hey, look, you've got to have a mask before you come in. And you're like, no, I'm not wearing a mask, I'm going in. Well, you go on in. Now at that point we could charge you with trespassing, but not the mask.
I know for calls, we need to, we wear our masks for the safety of people. But we don't go around telling people to wear their masks.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to answer these questions. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all you do for us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming and doing this for us.
No, thanks for having me.
So I want to thank you for taking the time to answer those questions and doing this.
Thank you so much for doing all this for us.
Very welcome.
Coming. So, last question. How well do you play ping pong?
I don't know how well I play ping pong. Am I about to find out?
Ping pong? Pretty good. Pretty good.
Okay.
Is this a challenge?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, that's all the questions I have. Do you have any other comments before we end this out?
Only that I appreciate what y'all done. I mean, it's amazing the community outreach you're doing, how you support law enforcement in general, and support the community. I think it's been great, and I'd love to be involved in anything else in the future. Just give us a call.
And again, I want to turn that thank you back to you just for sharing with us, and you really have opened my mind to the other perspectives that you police go through. And I was never like closed-minded to it, but maybe I was, because now I'm sincerely humbled to just know how it's more of a volunteer, what you guys go through, what you sacrifice just to help people. That's such an inspiring story and really humbling. So thank you for your job, and thank you to all the other police officers out there in Pinehurst and beyond.
Thank you.
And that's all I have for today.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Oh yeah, I loved it.